In American society, families gather together as one once a year to express their thanksgiving. In Jewish society, we do it once a week. That Friday night Shabbos table is something very special, bringing together our family and bringing together our relationship with God. It's so special that there's a whole series of rituals and customs and traditions that are associated with the meal. So let's see if we can go through them and know how to do them and know how to do them correctly. Some of the things I'm going to tell you, you don't have to do. And some of the things I'm going to tell you, you don't have to understand. Just do what I tell you to do, and you're not going to get into trouble. So Shabbos has arrived. The husband is supposed to go to shul. The wife is supposed to light the candles. So let's start with the lighting of the candles. How many candles? Many, many different traditions. Many people do 2 candles. Why 2? Because to bring extra joy and delight into the Shabbos, or because it says to observe the Shabbos and to keep the Shabbos, to remember the Shabbos. So there's 2 things there that we have to do. And in general, people have a tradition sometimes of adding to the 2 a candle for each member of the family. Some light 7 candles because that reminds us of the menorah that used to exist in the temple. Either way, we do things a little bit different. When we light the candles, we usually recite a blessing before we do the action. We recite a blessing and then we eat. But when it comes to the candles, first we light the candles and then we make the bracha. Why? Because if you made the bracha, it's already Shabbos. And so how can you light the candles? So we do the candles first, but in making the bracha, we cover our eyes so we don't see the mitzvah as it's been performed. But as soon as we then open our eyes after the bracha, the first thing we see on Shabbos is the light and joy that the candles bring. Ideally, they're supposed to be on the table where we're having the meal because they are supposed to bring light to the family. Doesn't have to be, but that is considered ideal. Now, then the man of the house comes home and he was escorted home by 2 angels according to tradition. And in coming home with these 2 angels, we start to sing Shalom Aleichem. We welcome the angels into our home. After we welcome the angels, there's a custom, a beautiful custom, where we bless our children. 1 blessing for male, 1 blessing for female. This is considered a time of blessing, so it's an appropriate time to bless our children. And we also recite a praise verses from the Bible for the women of the house. The Eshes Chayil, the woman of valor, 22 verbs from the book of Proverbs. The interpretation allegorically is it's speaking of referring to God, but no, it could be referring to the Torah, the Sabbath, the soul, and wisdom. And it just might be referring to the women. And then it's time to make Kiddush. Making Kiddush over wine, preferably, and in a nice, you're supposed to use your finest on Shabbos. You use a nice wine cup. And listen to this, I have a feeling many people don't know this one. You're supposed to hold the cup in the palm of your hands. Why? Because we are told in the Song of Songs, it says, as a rose among the thorns, so is my beloved amongst the daughters. Who's the rose? That's the Jewish people, the collective soul roots of the Jewish people. A rose has 13 petals and it has 5 sepals, I think that's the way you pronounce it, which are the green things sticking out, which protect the rose from the thorns. This, holding the cup like this, represents those 5 sepals protecting the rose from the thorns. Then we recite the Kiddush. In reciting the Kiddush, there are 2 big paragraphs that we recite, and then there's a bracha over the wine in between. The first paragraph has to do with creation, remembering that God created the world. The second paragraph has to do with the Exodus from Egypt. The first paragraph, in theory, begins with the verse in the book of Bereshit where we say, "Vayachulu hashamayim va'aretz." But the custom has it to start a couple of words from the previous verse where we say quietly, "Vayihi erev, vayihi boker." It was evening and it was morning. And then we say, "Yom hashishi," and we continue with "Vayachulu hashamayim." Why do we do that? Just do it. But the bottom line is Yom hashishi vayachulu hashamayim. The first letters of those 4 words is Yud Kei Vav Kei, the name of God. Nobody talks. We say the bracha, and you're not allowed to say anything until you drink from the cup, until you have the wine, until the bracha is recited. In some families, everyone makes the bracha. In many families, only the person making the Kiddush makes the bracha, and everybody has to answer amen to that so that they can fulfill the mitzvah. If you forgot to answer amen, you still get credit. Can a woman make the Kiddush? I'm not starting with that right now. We'll get to that some other time. Don't want to spoil the meal. It's time to eat. So we go in and we wash our hands appropriately. And then we go and to the table, and we're not supposed to say anything until somebody cuts the challah and we eat a piece of the bread. Many don't say anything. They just go, "No is saying something." So let's cut that out. That's not really the way we should be doing it. Then we make the motzi, and then we sit down to eat. Now, after we start eating, before you realize it, it is time to bench. We're not going to go into the meal itself, but in preparing for benching for the grace after meals, which is a bracha, which is a mitzvah in and of itself, we start first with mayim achronim. Mayim achronim is the latter water we put on our hands after we eat. Why do we do this? Well, we started with washing, we end with washing. They used to do this in the temple days. And there was also a time when we used to use a salt that had some danger to it. So we wanted to wash off our hands before the end of the meal. The reality is that's no longer pertinent, but we maintain the tradition, especially at the Shabbos table. This is the mayim achronim that we use, and you just hit the bottom here and the water comes pouring out. And then before we bench, there's something you got to do. You've got to make sure there's still bread on the table. This is what we're being thankful for. And you also have to remove all of the knives from the table. There are lots of reasons for this. Once in the Talmud, a rabbi, when he was benching and we speak about the destruction of the temple, he was so upset that he took a knife and stabbed the person sitting next to him. Others base it on other verses, but the tradition is not to have knives, but to leave a piece of bread. Before we start that benching, there is a tradition of having a cup of wine that we recite the benching over. Again, this is not something we generally do during the week, but for Shabbos, we maintain an ancient tradition of having this cup of wine that we recite the Birkat Hamazon on. Amongst Hasidim, you get handed this cup. You don't just pick it up by yourself. And then you recite the Birkat Hamazon. And what goes into that, that's for some other time. For now, I just want to go over one thing. When we sit down and we recite the motzi, we then take the challah. We take 2 challahs, 2 challah rolls, 2 big challahs. 2 because we got a double portion in the wilderness when it came time for Shabbos. And what we do is, some have the tradition of holding the 2 as one and making a slight cut over the challah so that when we recite the blessing, there won't be a major waste of time, so to speak, between the blessing and the actual act of cutting and eating. So we make like a little mark over the challah, and this challah is first removed from underneath the challah cover because there was dew in the wilderness that used to cover the challah. Some also have a challah cover underneath because there was dew under the manna as well. We eat the challah and we keep eating the challah through the meal, but before we do, we dip it in salt. Not we pour salt on it, although, go ahead, that should be the worst thing you do. You're supposed to dip it. Some have a tradition of dipping it 3 times. And this is all bringing back memories of how we used to prepare the sacrifices in the temple. So every aspect of the Shabbos table has meaning and has a purpose and adds to the beauty. Sometimes the beauty is personal for a particular family. Like in our family, we use this knife to cut the challah. As you can see, this is not the most beautiful and elegant knife, but you know what it is? It's Sherry's father's knife, which he brought with him from Poland. And so he's a part of our Shabbos table also, as are all the members of our family, past, present, and please God, future as well.